I started quite early. I started my career in my early 20s because I was doing my master's and PhD part-time and working full-time to pay for the education.
Right from where you started, you've been unstoppable, and it's been a very transformative journey on your end.
AI also bringing the digital divide in our society. And I think the highlights of my career so far has been international transfers, because in my, again, mid-20s, I've been transferred from New Zealand to Singapore.
Hello and welcome to CIO News. I am Simran Shivalkar, a journalist at CIO News, and your host for today. This session is being recorded and it will be available on our website cionews.co.in, on our YouTube channel and our LinkedIn handle as well. Today, we are back with another episode from one of our exclusive series called Wonder Women in AI. And we have with us Ms. Valeria Sadovykh, a technology strategist at Microsoft with over 15 years of experience in driving digital transformation across diverse industries. With her expertise in AI and cloud solutions, she is a passionate thought leader. She's passionate about leveraging technology for societal good. As a scholar and a speaker, she also advocates for socially responsive AI and decision intelligence. Awarded the 2023 University of Auckland 40 Under 40 for her disruptive innovation, Valeria has also been conferred the status of an individual with extraordinary ability by the US government. It gives me immense pride and pleasure to invite Valeria on in this session today. So, Valeria, thank you once again for agreeing to do this with us and joining us today.
Thank you, Simran, for hosting me today. I'm excited for our session and looking forward for the dialogue.
Absolutely. So, without any further ado, I would like to begin with my first question. With more than 15 years of experience in this domain, being at a leadership position, working with multinational corporations across a range of industries, how has this journey been for you? If you could just, share a bit about it.
Yes, definitely. I think this journey has been unexpected. This journey has been diverse, with lots of changes, with lots of ups and downs. I don't think there is like a perfect journey. I started quite early. I started my career in my early 20s because I was doing my master's and PhD part-time and working full-time to pay for the education. So I think I consider myself one of the luckiest one, because I was there to observe how we call it probably now manual labor, right? I was the one who was playing with the Excel formulas, building the PowerPoints, even my statistical analysis for my PhD, I was doing probably more manually than using any of the AI technologies. And actually even my work when I started at PwC as a young consultant, was a lot of manual activities in terms of creating the reports, creating the slides, preparing for the presentations, doing the presentation, meeting the people live, traveling, and so on. So I think that gave me this kind of the foundation how it used to be before. I know there are some people who saw it even further. And now I face with more innovative practices and more innovative IT implementations, projects, different way of thinking, different people. Obviously, that stage will be also as a past in a couple of years, so it's not going to be as innovative as it is. But it's just interesting to see the diversity and how time changed only within like 15 years. And I think the highlights of my career so far has been international transfers, because in my, again, mid-20s, I've been transferred from New Zealand to Singapore, and then closer to my 30s, from Singapore, I was transferred to the US, New York, and that's the experience that actually where I work still manually at that time, right? As I considered a more physical approach was there, these big multinational corporations, multinational teams, was lots of diversities, was lots of change, was lots of buzz happening, and that's probably one of the exciting things, because we usually don't remember what was what was not going well, like, your career downfalls or your academic downfalls. You don't remember that. And in parallel, I still try to stay up to date with the academic advances, publish the papers, work in the corporate world, and kind of advance myself as a human being as well. So I think that's what I can say. It's always been changing, and it's always been diverse, because I had an opportunity to work in the different continents and also work with different people and learn a lot. So I think, and in the future, I think my aspects will be, I work within AI and I look into AI and I work with the digital transformation. I like helping the companies with the digital transformation journey. But I think as me now is becoming more established person, I would be further invested into how AI actually helping the humans become more intelligent, because we talk so much how AI becomes, how we build AI to become more intelligent, but we don't talk about the other side of humanity, what's happening with us, how we change, and do we get actually smarter? And this is a big question, and we're not necessarily our cognitive skills are not getting sharper as it used to be. So I think that's where I'm kind of shifting a bit in terms of more responsible AI practices, responsible way of using the technology, and how we as the humans should be aware what type of impact the technology has on us. So I think that's my future trajectory, how I would love to see my journey for the next 15 years. However, I'm not too sure what the life is going to bring, because there are different aspects coming into the place.
Rightly said, and lovely for sharing, for walking us through your journey. It seems like you've been right from where you started, you've been unstoppable, and it's been a very transformative journey on your end. And like you also said, when considering AI and the human aspect, while going through, while going through your work, there's an emphasis on responsible AI. You also just mentioned, perhaps stressing more about technology for social good. So, any examples that you would like to address how AI can be leveraged for societal good, or what are the common factors that need to get essential when you consider AI for responsible use?
Like when we talk about the responsible AI practices and AI ethics, it's a lot of theology there, it's a lot of theory there as well, because ethics for different people means different things, right? And with the technology it becomes really blurry. I think one of the reason why I started being involved in this responsible AI practices so much and ethical AI is because when I did my PhD, I looked into how people make decisions based on the information available online. So at that stage, I realized that lots of us humans, we outsource our innermost decisions, right? Our information, our private information, to the wisdom of crowds. In order for us to make a decision, we seek for advices from people we don't know. Who are they? And that was actually confusing for me, because I was thinking that we as a smart human beings, we should be more thorough in terms of checking the legitimacy of the sources. But actually it's not this, it hasn't been that 10 years ago, and now it's even worse. We're outsourcing most of our activities now online, and we don't even know what are we outsourcing and what is not. But we don't even realize how tracked we are, and how much internet is influencing us. And I think in one aspect, it's a business model. It's totally the way how technology, like breakthrough, is coming in, and it's innovation. But at the same time, there is something unethical about it. But the problem is, we as a human beings, we don't understand what is ethical and what is unethical, and we don't have the capacity to process everything what technology does to us. So that's one of the aspects why I got so interested on this. And then second, what I start realizing that AI also bringing the digital divide in our society. Now we talking here about the technology, because we had access to technology basically from birth, right? Different type of technology, but there is still 37% of population that does not have access to the internet, right? And the thing is, me and you, we are speeding up with AI because we know it's there, we are learning every day, we are advancing ourselves, some pros and cons. We might be not the super users, but we are some sort of users, right? But there is those category of people who are geographically disadvantaged and also monetary disadvantage as well, who don't have access to that. So the gap between us is becoming wider and wider, and that's actually also quite dangerous. So society getting divided. So the technology is bringing quite an unfortunate way of living for those who are in disadvantage. So they don't have time to catch up with us. And those the one who has the biggest advantage in terms of the technology, the power, the money, right? They're getting probably richer and richer. Like that's the sad story, right? The bad story that we talk about it. Of course, AI is also bridging the divide that will bring it up. But that's what's happening. It also seems to be a bit unethical. We also don't realize that the physical touch is becoming more expensive than online touch, right? Because our world is becoming more fragmented. We travel less, we interact with each other less. And a simple example of doctors through the telemedicine and doctors through the physical attendance, right? The telemedicine is cheaper than the physical attendance, but does it necessarily, the quality sometimes of going and seeing doctor face to face is still high, right? For some aspect, it's good that we can, again, it's much better that we can even access the doctor online, right? The same with educational aspects is online education versus offline education and physical world education. There are lots of studies being done that it's not necessarily that impactful, right? However, it's still a source of education, and when we're bridging the divide, right, that's the only way to bridge the divide. So it's a good thing. But so those who have again economical advantage, they can have more physical interaction rather those who don't, and that's unfair, right? From one perspective, they allow their kids to have private tutoring, for example, right? Or go to them, have personal trainers, right? And we know if you do online training and you do personal training, the personal training is more powerful, right? And I'm talking about the small things, but those small things are getting bigger and bigger, right? Even having friends and physical friends and catching up with physical friends is also getting more expensive. And having real friends is getting more expensive. So that's again the aspect of this ethical usage of AI, but the problem is no one explained it to us because it's such a complex subject, and now we have lots of regulations that are coming into the place for the organizations that I think it's a separate type of jobs that needs to be created that will explain to us those regulations, but then no one explains to the users their rights and what is the technology taking from them. So that's kind of my focus, and it's a really complex kind of subject and complex discussion because it's got different sub discussions for each area. But at the same time, as being technology advocate and enthusiast, right, I can say that AI brought so much into our world, and it's trying to bridge the divide at the same time, right? Because education becoming more accessible, no matter what, you can still try your best and access the best resources through online sources. The massive changes that happen with the healthcare and the research improvements. So that's also one of the things that we can be grateful for. Inclusion, right? For example, there are AI that helps in a physical therapy, there are AI helps that in emotional therapy. It helps people with some disadvantages, physical disadvantages, to actually operate at the same level as people without any disadvantages. So it's a huge kind of improvement. You can make money by sitting at home or not even going to the office because of some certain physical restriction. That's enormous, I think. And also the change in the job market, no matter what, with one aspect that AI impacts those without the skills, right? In least developed countries, they cannot catch up, but at the same time, AI creates so many new jobs. The new profession in the last 15 years has been, the market is being overflowed with the jobs. So yeah, that's a dilemma that we have at the moment in the society.
very well, because the irony of being in this interconnected world is somewhere we are losing the actual connection. And like you said, there are many layers to this. It's very complex, but I like how the way you put it across. And also when it comes to job displacement, so do you think AI is rather creating more opportunities rather than obstructions when it comes to jobs?
I think it's, again, as I mentioned, based on the society you live in, because the society you live in, and based on the social statuses you are, because probably in our world it creates more jobs, right, and more opportunities. However, in least developed countries, right, where they have manual workers and they have manual production, it's actually taking the jobs away because AI is cheaper. And those people, the problem is those people do not have a capacity and the means to educate themselves. However, we here living with the excess amount of information, we know that education is essential, and we are responsible for self-educating, self-changing ourselves. We're doing, our organizations doing it, and ourselves, we're doing it as well. We are proposing the change within ourselves to become better so we can fit those new jobs. However, those people, they don't have the same amount of information, they lack access, and they cannot grasp it as such at the same level. So that's where the danger is. But overall, if we talk in a developed world, the market is, for me, I see it as growing with every day. But it also creates lots of challenges. For example, it's growing, but academia is, from academic perspective, they're also getting behind it because they don't know what to teach the people, because everything is getting changed within, the data science becoming more automated subject. However, it's still in the peak. Do we still need some of the, some of the traditional subject like biology, physics, and so on? Would it be used, or is it now, because it's a collective information, anything can be, you don't need to have certain level of understanding, and that's challenging as well. And it's also challenging for academia to define how they can use AI to actually help the students learn better, rather than AI takes the learning away from the students. That's challenging. That's also another area of my research, is to looking how we can use the Gen AI to actually to make our students using it so they get more actually intelligent, so they don't use it as a part of cheating technique. They're using it as actually getting more smarter. How do they can challenge their machines?
I think we all can agree there, because advancements, technological advancements like Gen AI, I think they are just supposed to enhance the intelligence and not help you completely in the process, the way you put it across.
Yeah, and you can't do anything with it, because we're changing, right? We're evolving the same as the technology, right? There are certain traits that we are losing, right? For example, we will be geographically not as advanced as we used to be, in terms of we will be relying on technology more, right? We now don't drive without GPS. We don't know the roads without GPS. Doesn't matter that it's even the way to home, we still use it. Is it good, is it bad? We cannot judge, but it's maybe our brains is taking those activities out because we need it for information processing, right? For different type of information to be processed. But at the same time, we still need cognitive thinking to survive. How much do we want to depend on technology? That's also for us to decide. What are we doing to kind of differentiate ourselves? What are we doing to stay insane? Because there was also lots of studies that all the online social media, and I'm not against online social media, because we have no choice, right? We have to interact online, we have to advocate for ourselves online, we have to use Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, everything. We have to do it in order to survive and stay relevant, right? But however, because of overusing it, people developing ADHD, right? Because they're becoming this syndrome of focus. They cannot focus anymore because they're all over the place. And especially that's a huge problem with kids. So yeah, that's the question. What are we doing about it, and who is doing what?
Absolutely, and thank you so much for providing in depth these insights, and as to how we can tackle these challenges. Coming back to your, as a recipient of the 2023 University of Auckland 40 Under 40 Award in the Disruptors and Innovation category, how do you find inspiration? How do you balance your personal realm from your professional life? How do you find that motivation to drive constant innovation?
I don't have a glamorous story to tell, right? I think, unfortunately or fortunately, some of the achievements come from self-doubts. Some of the achievements come from self-competition or continuous comparisons. So I think one of the drives probably it's always be better, and at the same time have some sort of hunger. So I would not. That's probably what drove me, to move around the globe, to differentiate myself, to study part-time and work full-time so I don't waste time. I wanted to speed up the process, like finish my PhD early, have a career early. So I think it's not necessarily a good thing that I had this. It definitely was some sort of self-challenge, self-comparison, definitely lots of self-doubts in terms of, am I good? Can I achieve it? Or I cannot achieve it? Or am I quitting? Or I'm not quitting, right? Can I try that? Or looking at some of the successful figures, right, in the world and thinking, well, they could make it. I also want to make it. So I'm not too sure it was the healthy way of living or doing things, especially probably my first 10 years, 15 years. I think now I'm a bit more structured, settled. I look back and I don't know, that's probably what drove me, right? That I wanted to be different. I wanted to differentiate myself, but at the same time I had a hunger to travel, to try to work with different people. So I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, that's who I become and how it's been built. But I also realized that this is not it to your life in terms of the achievements, right? There is also aspect of the personal life that comes. So you have the career life, but you also have a personal life. And in order to be happy, you need a balance. And unfortunately, the personal life is much less calculated than the professional life. So I think the personal life is actually harder than the professional life after a certain stage, because in professional life you can kind of assume your steps or think about your steps, like, within 2 years I want to change the country, or I want to find another job, or I want to get that degree or that degree, right? But with the personal life you can't do that, because you can plan but it's never happened. Like, I had plans for my personal life but they never happened, and you don't know what tools to use. Yeah, so I think that's one of the things. It's not always like, of course you're inspired by leaders. You have you definitely use some sort of mentoring and coaching for sure. It's one of the main aspects, but it's also sometimes comes from insecurities, for sure.
Absolutely. Rightly, and the way you drew parallels, professional life is way easy if you know how you want your journey to be, rather than your personal life. But thank you so much for answering that. And on the same lines, I'm sure, talking about your journey, about 15 years of experience leading research and PhD, you've had your set of challenges as well as opportunities. And being someone at a leadership position, I just wanted to hear it from you. Has there ever been a time where gender dynamics played a role, or it affected your work?
I think we have to be honest, right? Gender differences exist, right? We're not the same. We cannot be the same. And I think being a woman is a blessing, in nowadays especially. So that's the first thing. The second thing, obviously I had good moments and I had bad moments in my career. And I think most of those bad moments were not necessarily impacted by gender impact or gender inequalities. They're more the result of these bad moments were my personal traits. And personal traits, and especially maybe the background I came from, some sort of the old way of thinking, the foundation that prevented me from more success, for example, as I can say that. For example, I was, as not every single woman, but quite often women are shy, right? And they cannot say what they want or how they want it or how they want their career progress. And to be honest, I'm still battling with this personal trait every day. I cannot do anything. It's just the way some of us are. And I don't think it's a fault of a man, right? Because they were brought up differently. But it's actually my fault that I cannot overcome this trait, right? Getting shy or not being able to articulate what I actually want without worrying that I might offend someone. But it's nothing to do with the gender obstacle. It's something to do with our psychology, with the way how the woman thinks and the way how the man thinks, right? So I think the problem is no one educates us on how we are structured, and we wired completely different. And each of those genders, if they brought together, it's a perfect combination of traits, right? And the best teams are usually like multicultural mixed teams. So I would definitely be more careful with the personal traits before I go on the gender inequality subject, because as the woman we have some of the traits that I think is really difficult. And I had many men managers and I had many women managers, right? And I remember the most successful women as mentors and the managers, they were most of them more aggressive, more tougher, harder, go and get it. But not all of us are like that, and it's because but they all came with those insecurities, shyness, sort of aspects, and that men probably not necessarily exposed to, but we don't know because no one explained to us how we think. So I think that's the fault in our education system, is not explaining the differences between us. We are aiming for kind of that we are the same, but we are not the same. Why don't you just explain the differences between us? That's one of the things. And the second thing, I think it's also, it's a huge cultural side in terms of every culture and every society. And actually, even within every family, it's different as well. I think by being educated in New Zealand, actually, it helped me to not seeing the gender differences as much, because it was much more Western, modern, young country that over there I've never felt it, and this subject was never brought up. However, when I start going overseas and start working and you start progressing in your career path, that's where you can start to see something is different. But I think when you're junior, it's not as, it's less visible. But anyway, my point is that I think we as a woman should look at our own personal traits and try to change our personal traits and work on those traits. Like if we want to compete, if we want to be out there, there is something we have to change with ourselves. And I have the same things throughout my career. I cannot lose it necessarily, and maybe it's good that I'm not losing it. Maybe I'm staying true to myself. But from that perspective, I would not focus on gender obstacles. I would focus on your performance, your continuous improvement, and even the changes in your personal characteristic is also considered a continuous improvement, right? Even when you can step up out of comfortable zone. And also looking into the support system. What support system do you have? Do you have people who can encourage you, right? The people who can help you to learn the new skills, to help you to speak up, whether it is mentors, whether it is family members, whether it is your partners, right, who actually can help you give those more confidence and give you more rights to be out there. So I think for me, it's one of the things that I always think about it. And I think we cannot blame the gender, because the two genders are fantastic. But the thing is, we don't know how the two genders separate.
Very well, because I like the way you put it. It's we are trying to be equal, but we are wired and structured differently. So the main question is, how we address that. And again, coming back to personal traits, yes, I definitely agree. Where our personal traits could be somewhere the reason why we are not more vocal about, when it comes to leadership roles.
Or promotions, right? We don't like. I remember I had a few probably cases I missed on the promotions because I was not vocal enough, and then I had one of my bosses came and said to me, "Why didn't you just tell me that you wanted a promotion?" And I was like, wasn't it obvious? I was the best. I was trying so hard, and I was thinking it would be recognizable, but it was not recognizable because we cannot speak up at the right time, at the right place. Why? I don't know. Some women are different, some wired are different. But I still will consider it's not the gender obstacle. I would consider it's my fault and my lesson learned because I did not speak up.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing that example as well, coming from your personal point of view. Lastly, I would also like to understand on the same lines, being a woman in this space and at a leadership position, reflecting on your own experiences from your journey, any advice or any best practices that you would like to share with your fellow, women leaders?
We have different phases in life, right? And not always the same approaches work in each phase. So career is important. Personal life is also important. There are different tools and techniques for each set of life. Sometimes some women can achieve it at the same time, others cannot. But that's why we have different phases. So it doesn't mean that if your career is not at the peak at the right moment, it does not mean that you are diminishing yourself. So that's also if you're focusing on the family, on the kids, but the career is kind of slacking in the moment, it does not mean anything that you will never succeed. So it's just a different phase. And for women, it's really for some of the women that are hungry and want to achieve something, it's really difficult for them to overcome. Some can do it simultaneously, some cannot. I think for me, one of the things were to stay, when I was in my early 20s, structure helped me so much. But however, it's much easier to be structured when you live by yourself and you're alone and you have a goal and you can achieve it. But when you start having family, it's really difficult to be structured. So that's also another thing. So again, different phase, different approach, change it. What was working before might not necessarily work now. So the change, adaptability, curiosity, one of the things. And I think no matter what is the hunger, some sort of hunger to achieve a certain thing. And lots of this goes into psychological state in terms of self-motivation, self-driving, or have, again, as I mentioned, like emotional and physical support around you that will motivate you. Because unfortunately, without motivation, it's really difficult to go further. You can have like the actual hunger, right? In terms of when we talk about it, like you need to finish the university, you have to finish the university, you have to find a job to provide to yourself. But also you can also have an inspirational hunger where you want to achieve something that is meaningful. Again, different phase, different approaches. And also in life, I follow there is another thing, there is nothing wrong with being wrong. Sometimes we take the wrong path, and it's not like a allowance to failure. It's not necessarily, it's taking a wrong path. It does not mean it's a step back. There is something you will learn, but it's really painful sometimes because it's you make a wrong decision, you make a career move, the wrong career move, and you're thinking, that's it, it's killed my progression. But we never know. And then, my main kind of I follow the 3C concept in my life. It's like 3 crucial step principle that drive personal and also the same as organizational transformation. It's called choice, chances, and changes. And you must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change, right? So, and unfortunately, also for the girls, it's really difficult to make a choice, and don't be scared about the consequences of this choice. But however, I think sometimes it's better to make the wrong choice than don't make a choice, because even the wrong choice will bring you additional learning, but then you will have some sort of regret. So yeah, you have to make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change. And then you have to also, there is like someone is adding like extra C is in terms of the commitment. You have to commit to the change as well. And in the technology world, right, now in the current world, we don't have this luxury to don't make a change, right? We have to change all the time. We have to learn all the time. We cannot wait for others to educate us. We also cannot think about it that, or if someone has bigger resources, they are better, or they can progress faster. No, that's not the case. Now is actually, it's all within you. The organizations are not responsible for your career progression, for your education, for your continuous learning. You are responsible for this. So I think that's another thing, responsibilities within us, unfortunately.
Lovely. I absolutely love the way you put choice, chance, change, and again the other fourth one, commitment. I like how you made it very insightful and inspirational, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners have a lot to take away from this session. With that, we would be concluding this session. And Valeria, thank you once again for being a part of this. I hope and I look forward to having more such conversations with you.
Okay, definitely, that would be perfect and lovely. Thank you for your time as well, and look forward to our next chat.
Absolutely. And thank you once again, Valeria. I hope to see you again.